Good evening, and welcome back to another quiet journey through time. Tonight, we drift through the still corridors of the Forbidden City, where silence once ruled more strictly than any emperor. Before we begin, take a slow breath, settle into comfort, and let your thoughts quiet themselves. You can share in the comments where you're watching from and what time the night has reached for you. In this story, nothing changes quickly. The marble floors stay polished, the lanterns burn low, and unseen hands sweep the same path each dawn. In their rhythm, you might hear the echo of something eternal, the quiet perfectionism that sustains royal tranquility. If you find calm in these moments of stillness, softly tap the like button and subscribe so we can drift together again through the gentle history of forgotten labour. You awaken before the first light. The air inside the courtyard feels older than night itself, dense, unmoving, faintly chilled. The sky above is still colourless, a vast emptiness pressed against the tiled roofs. You breathe slowly, sensing the quiet weight of the Forbidden City before it wakes. The silence is not absence, it is presence, thick, layered, and softly breathing. Your body moves without command. You rise the way the others rise, with no sound and no hurry. Around you, faint figures stir in the half-dark. Their shapes are small, blurred by the pale mist that hugs the ground. You recognize them not by their faces but by their rhythm, the slow, familiar gestures of those who sweep the same path each day. The courtyard stretches endlessly in front of you. Its stones, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, are cool beneath your soles. Every inch feels deliberate, arranged long ago by hands that no one remembers. You run your palm lightly over a pillar as you pass, feeling the tiny grains of dust that have settled overnight. It is not dirt, not truly. It is the trace of time itself, waiting to be moved again. You pick up your broom. Its handle is polished from years of use, the bamboo fibres softened from endless friction against marble. The sound it makes, barely a whisper, fills the stillness more completely than speech ever could. There are no greetings here, no morning chatter. The work begins with the faint scrape of straw across stone, repeated and repeated until it becomes a kind of heartbeat. As you move, you notice how the darkness thins in slow, invisible degrees. The palace roofs begin to outline themselves against a faint blue-grey glow. The world remains heavy, though, as if still dreaming. Every motion feels connected to something ancient, as though the act of sweeping keeps the vast machinery of the city turning silently beneath the dawn. You pause for a moment, letting the broom rest. The faint smell of dew mingles with old incense drifting from some distant hall. Your breath rises in a slow mist, fading before it reaches the air above. There is a comfort in this quiet, a kind of belonging that comes from routine, one that neither asks nor promises anything, only movement, only calm. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, a faint sound of another broom joins yours, then another. The rhythm expands gently, forming a pattern older than memory. The first light of morning has not yet arrived, but its echo is felt in the way shadows begin to soften. You lower your gaze again and begin to sweep. The path is long, but there's no need to think of the end. Every stroke carries its own peace, every breath its own silence. This soundless routine begins. You do not decide to start. It simply happens, as it always does. One breath flows into another, one stroke of the broom into the next. The courtyard feels wider now, though your pace remains unchanged. The sweepers move like shadows beside you, scattered evenly, each one absorbed in the same soft rhythm. No one gives direction. No one needs to. The pattern has existed longer than any of you, passed down in silence. The brooms whisper across the stone, slow and steady, tracing faint arcs that fade as soon as they're made. The sound they create is not truly sound. It is more like texture in the air, a faint tremor that you feel rather than hear. Each motion dissolves into the next until time itself seems to blur. The horizon remains dim, holding the light back for a little longer, allowing this fragile hour to stretch. Your arms move with a practiced ease. The handle slides between your palms, worn smooth by repetition. It fits you perfectly, as if it remembers you, or you it. You begin at the edges of the courtyard, where the dust gathers most heavily. The fine powder clings to the corners, reluctant to leave. But you coax it gently, stroke after stroke, guiding it toward the centre where others will gather it later. There is a kind of peace in knowing your task will never be complete. Dust will fall again, wind will carry more, yet still you sweep, not for progress, but for balance. This knowledge, the futility and the necessity existing together, brings a quiet satisfaction. The act itself becomes the meaning. You glance toward the others. Their movements are slow, synchronized, like the pendulums of unseen clocks. A few paces away, a figure straightens his back, stretches, and resumes. Beyond him, another bends slightly lower, gathering the last of the debris. No one speaks, but somehow you're all speaking the same language. Motion without sound, effort without aim. A faint flutter disturbs the air above. A bird, perhaps, startled awake by nothing at all. Its wings beat once, twice, and vanish beyond the roofline. The sound lingers, blending with the rhythm below. For a moment, the world feels wider again, and then it contracts, returning to the steady breath of work. Your shoulders relax as the broom glides over the marble. The same path, the same pressure, the same faint trace erased and remade. You find yourself breathing in time with the strokes until the two are indistinguishable. The world narrows to what lies before you: stone, dust, and motion. Somewhere deep inside the palace walls a faint echo rolls. A door, perhaps, or a distant footfall. It fades before you can be certain. The others do not pause, neither do you. The sweep continues, soft and endless, as the first cool threads of morning air slip quietly between the pillars. The cool stone beneath your feet anchors you to the hour before sunrise. It feels almost alive, smooth, damp with the faint breath of night, and humming softly under each measured step. You sense its patience, the same patience it has held for centuries, enduring the weight of countless mornings. Your bare soles trace the same cold lines that generations of sweepers have traced before. Each step presses slightly against the past, and the stone gives nothing back but stillness. You guide the broom forward, watching the faint streaks of dust curl and scatter before settling once more. The marble reflects only what it chooses, dim patterns of shadow, the faintest hint of your movement, a pale ghost of the lantern light above. You move slower now, not from weariness, but because the stillness demands it. Each stroke must match the tone of the space, measured, obedient, almost reverent. Around you, the world holds its breath. The sweepers drift across the courtyard like ripples in slow water. Their figures blur at the edges where darkness and mist still mingle. No faces are visible, only the faint rhythm of motion, bending and straightening, pausing, resuming. It is a choreography that requires no thought. Repetition has replaced intention long ago. When the broom slides across a patch of fine grit, the sound changes slightly, deepening into a dry murmur. You listen to it, as if the marble were speaking to you through texture alone. You adjust your pressure without thinking, easing the bristles until the tone softens again. That is the work. Listening, adjusting, repeating. Not to finish, but to maintain the balance between effort and quiet. A faint breeze passes through one of the open archways. It moves the edge of your sleeve and stirs a single curl of dust into the air. You watch it drift upward, slowly twisting in the half-light before fading into nothing. The air carries a scent of stone that has known too many seasons to count, a dry, calm fragrance that feels both heavy and clean. As your broom traces its slow path, your mind begins to empty. Thoughts slide away like pebbles rolling off polished glass. The body moves, the world narrows, the air thickens. Only motion remains, small and precise. The sound of bristles against stone fills the silence, matching the beat of your pulse until they become the same. You notice the faintest colour at the far edge of the courtyard, the beginning of grey shifting toward blue. Dawn is coming, though gently, as if not to startle the quiet workers below. You take another step forward, feeling the marble cool against your feet, and sweep again, your rhythm unbroken. The courtyard seems endless still, but within that endlessness there is peace. The day will begin soon, but not yet. Not until the dust has been persuaded once more to rest where it belongs. Dust gathers in thin, uncertain trails across the marble, each one glinting faintly in the grey half-light. You follow them slowly, broom held low, as if you were tracing invisible memories rather than cleaning. Every stroke feels like an act of remembrance. The dust is older than you, older than the sweepers beside you, older perhaps than the emperor who once walked these same stones. Each speck carries a history too small to see and too quiet to tell. You draw the broom in smooth, patient arcs. The sound is soft, almost melodic, a faint brushing that folds itself into the stillness. Somewhere behind you, another sweeper moves in rhythm. The two sounds meet for a moment, overlap, and part again. Two gentle waves crossing on the same silent shore. There's no hurry here. Dust will always return. What you move away today will return tomorrow, drawn back by the same wind that cools your neck. Yet this is the purpose. The circle that never ends. You sweep because the dust must move. The dust settles because you have swept. It is an agreement between effort and surrender, and both sides keep it faithfully. As you move toward the centre of the courtyard, your broom catches the faintest echo of a pattern, a line where the stones have worn smoother than their neighbours. You realise how many feet have passed here. Servants, guards, officials, maybe even emperors once. Yet the marble says nothing of them now. It keeps no stories, only the traces of movement, polished down until only texture remains. The air feels heavier. The first hints of dawn are still weak, unable to pierce the courtyard's depth. You notice how the light gathers near the edges of the walls, reflecting softly on the pale dust you have not yet touched. The space feels vast but not empty, alive with quiet presence. The more you listen, the more you realize silence is not an absence. It is a hum beneath everything. A faint sound interrupts, a soft rustle as one of the sweepers shifts his footing. The noise fades quickly, swallowed by the stone. It feels less like interruption and more like confirmation. That others are still here, carrying out the same unspoken duty. You breathe deeply, letting the calmness settle over you like a second skin. When you pause, the broom resting lightly against your shoulder, you see a swirl of dust rise again in the faint breeze. It turns once, twice, and settles near the base of a pillar you've already passed. There is no frustration in this, only a quiet understanding that the work continues, always continues. You lower your broom once more. The sound of straw meeting stone returns, soft, slow, familiar. The courtyard exhales, as if grateful for your patience. Beyond the far arch, a pale thread of light begins to stretch. promising the next part of the ritual that never truly ends. The lanterns of faint gold still burn in the distance, their light trembling like half-remembered thoughts. You move toward them slowly, drawn by their warmth but never rushing. Their glow sits low against the walls, dim enough not to disturb the calm. Each flame sways just slightly, as though nodding in rhythm with the sweeping. You pause near one, watching how the light bends across the marble floor. The gold touches the dust, making it shimmer for a moment before fading back into grey. The broom feels light in your hand now, as though it moves on its own. You no longer guide it, you accompany it. Every motion carries its own tempo, measured by breath and silence. The lantern beside you flickers once, revealing faint cracks in the base of the pillar. Even the stones are aging quietly, yet they endure, unchanged in their slowness. A fellow sweeper passes on the far side of the courtyard. His shadow crosses the lantern light, stretching and shrinking as he moves. You don't look up, but you sense his presence the way one senses the moon through clouds, distant but constant. He will not speak, and neither will you. Words would feel too heavy in this fragile calm. You move again, the bristles catching faint threads of dust that twist briefly in the light. Each strand floats upward, then drifts down like tired thoughts returning home. You notice how your own reflection flickers in the polished floor. It doesn't resemble you exactly. It's a blurred figure. Soft, uncertain, ghost-like. The palace seems to prefer it that way, holding every shape just out of reach. Far above, the roofs rise like sleeping mountains. Their curved edges catch the early light and hold it gently, refusing to let it fall. You remember that these lanterns will soon fade when the sun reaches them, but that moment is not yet here. For now, they remain small, steady guardians of the night's final hour. The faint smell of oil from the wicks mixes with the dust in the air. You breathe it in, slow and deep. It reminds you of age, of time burning away without complaint. Every scent, every sound here seems to be saying the same quiet thing, that nothing is hurried and nothing truly ends. The broom brushes along the base of the lantern stand, gathering a delicate ring of ash and dust. You circle it twice, clearing what the night has left behind. When you step back, the flame seems steadier, as though grateful for the attention. A soft warmth touches your wrist before fading again. The courtyard feels different now, subtly brighter. Shadows shorten but do not yet vanish. You look across the vast expanse and realize that, without ever meaning to, you have moved halfway through it. The pattern will continue, lantern after lantern, corridor after corridor, each one reflecting the same silent devotion. The next hall waits beyond the far gate, where the faint gold of light still flickers against carved dragons. The air hums lightly, expectant yet calm, as if inviting you to carry your quiet rhythm there next. The weight of discipline settles over you like a familiar robe, soft, steady, and precise. There is no burden in it, only a structure, a way to move without thought. You have performed this ritual so many times that your muscles respond before the mind can wander. The broom rises, sweeps, pauses, and returns again. Each gesture feels measured, aligned perfectly with the slow breathing of the courtyard. Around you, the sweepers remain distant but synchronized. From far across the marble floor, you catch the faint reflection of their movements in the polished surface, small glimmers of motion that drift in and out of view. It feels as though the palace itself is breathing through all of you, a vast organism with many quiet hearts beating at the same calm pace. You think of how discipline is not taught here. It is absorbed, the way stone absorbs light. Over time, you stopped needing reminders, stopped counting the hours. Each motion has become an instinct, a language of repetition. When you first arrived, you may have felt the ache in your arms, the impatience of youth. Now you feel only the quiet necessity of it all. There is no beginning, no end, only the slow continuation of a task that defines itself by being done. Your broom glides across a shallow groove in the marble, a line left by time or by countless years of passage. You adjust your hand slightly to follow it, letting the movement guide you. The groove feels familiar, like a boundary between thought and silence. You find comfort there, in the idea that even stone carries its own quiet memory of repetition. The faint rustle of robes breaks the stillness for a moment as another sweeper passes nearby. You do not look up, but you sense the same unspoken understanding. There is no need for acknowledgement. The presence of another only reinforces the stillness. It proves that silence is shared, that even the smallest action connects to something whole. You feel the broom handle's smoothness beneath your fingers, polished from years of use. Its surface carries the touch of hundreds before you, their patience embedded into the grain. The thought is calming, continuity held in wood and bristle. You think of the generations that will come after, repeating the same stroke, keeping the same rhythm long after your own hands are gone. The discipline is what endures, not the person. A faint flicker from the last lantern brushes against the marble, the golden hue now almost pale with dawn's approach. Its reflection trembles slightly, reminding you that even calmness contains movement. You pause, resting the broom lightly against your shoulder, and exhale slowly. This is the balance the palace demands. Not perfection, but constancy. To move without question, to act without noise, to repeat until silence itself becomes the teacher. You lower the broom again, feeling the marble's cool breath against your feet, and continue. The next hall waits ahead, the hall of supreme harmony, vast, silent, and waiting to receive the same measured devotion. The hall of supreme harmony looms before you, immense and unmoving, its pillars dark against the faintly blue dawn. You approach slowly, each step echoing in the vast open space. Though the sound never truly travels, it simply folds back into the air, softened by distance and age. The marble beneath your feet cools even more as you enter the shadow of the hall, where night still lingers stubbornly in corners untouched by light. Your broom touches the floor again. The texture here is different, smoother, older, and slightly uneven from centuries of careful polishing. Each stroke glides more easily, and the faint sound that follows feels softer, deeper. You can almost hear the layers of history pressed into the stone, the slow rhythm of generations who stood where you stand, all serving the same quiet purpose. The ceiling above disappears into shadow. The vast beams seem to float without effort, painted in colours that the dawn can only guess at. You know they're red, gold, and black, but now they rest in a gentle monochrome, a world that belongs to neither night nor morning. The emptiness of the hall magnifies every sound. The slow drag of a broom, the creak of a handle, the whisper of fabric brushing against stone. You sweep along the central path first, tracing the invisible lines where ceremonies once took place. There are no voices now, no drums or processions, only dust, gathering quietly in the same sacred spaces where orders were once spoken. The stillness feels reverent, not empty. You sense that even silence here must be performed with care, as though it too were a ritual offering. Your mind drifts as the motion continues. You imagine the hall long ago filled with light and movement, officials lined like shadows beneath the throne. But the image fades quickly, replaced again by the soft murmur of the broom. The past seems too loud for this hour. The present demands gentler sounds. You move toward the edges of the hall where the walls rise like the edges of a canyon. Your broom follows the slow curve of the base, lifting small swirls of grey that dance in the lantern light. The dust seems almost grateful to move again, as though waiting for your touch to be freed from stillness. A faint coolness drifts through the open doorway behind you. Morning air, thin and distant, testing the edge of the hall. It carries a dry scent of stone and ash, mingled with the faint trace of incense left over from yesterday's rites. You breathe it in, letting it settle deep in your chest. It feels timeless, neither fresh nor stale, simply constant. You stop beneath one of the massive red pillars and rest for a moment, Brooms standing upright beside you. The hall is enormous, yet it feels smaller now, contained within the rhythm of your breath. You glance toward the far end where the throne once stood, barely visible in the dim light. It seems less like a seat of power and more like another relic of stillness, gathering dust like everything else. You lower the broom again and begin to sweep the next stretch of marble. The rhythm resumes, quiet and steady, echoing softly into the endless space. The echoes that never return fill the hall, though they are not really echoes at all. Each footstep, each broom stroke fades almost immediately, absorbed by the vast marble and high painted ceilings. You notice them only because of their absence, how the sound seems to vanish, leaving a faint tremor behind, a memory of movement rather than the movement itself. It is comforting in a way to know that nothing persists except the rhythm of your own presence. You sweep in long, slow arcs, letting the broom guide you along the polished floor. The marble feels cooler here, and you notice the slight unevenness beneath the bristles, a ridge or small indentation where centuries of use have left their mark. Your hand adjusts unconsciously, lightening pressure, then resuming its deliberate course. It is dance performed without thought, a conversation between you and the stones. The distant doorway frames the courtyard outside where faint light begins to seep in. Yet it does not disturb the hall. The shadows remain deep, soft and uninterrupted. The space seems suspended, neither fully night nor fully day, existing only to receive your careful movements. You notice a speck of dust lift as your broom passes, spinning gently in the pale air before settling again. Its motion is almost meditative, and you find your own breath falling into rhythm with it. A faint murmur of fabric brushes past your shoulder as another sweeper moves nearby. You do not glance at them. There is no need. Their presence is a part of the pattern, a gentle reinforcement of the stillness that surrounds you. The air between you is measured, patient, and unbroken, carrying the quiet understanding that all here is interconnected through repetition and restraint. You pause for a moment beneath the shadow of a painted beam. The colours are muted in this light, reds dulled to brick, golds softened to bronze, but they seem to hum quietly, a faint echo of their former brilliance. The ceiling is high enough that your gaze can drift upward without strain, yet low enough that you feel enclosed, contained, protected within this quiet cathedral of routine. Your broom continues to move, guided by habit and memory, lifting the smallest traces of dust and returning them to order. Each sweep is deliberate, even as the hall stretches endlessly before you. You are aware that the emperor, long asleep or perhaps long gone, would never notice this work. Yet it persists, faithful and measured, as if the palace itself demanded it. The marble cools further beneath your feet as dawn begins to inch closer outside. Light spreads in faint bands, soft and unhurried, touching only the edges of the hall and leaving the centre in gentle shadow. You follow your path slowly, almost reverently, tracing the same arc you traced yesterday and the day before. The routine is eternal, and yet every moment feels entirely new in its quiet intensity. Each step and sweep draws you further into the hush, until even your awareness of time seems suspended. Only the rhythm remains, steady, gentle, unbroken, and completely absorbing. Brushstrokes of routine guide your movements now, soft and continuous. The broom glides over marble in slow arcs, drawing invisible patterns that vanish almost as soon as they appear. Each sweep carries a weightless significance, not in what it achieves, but in the motion itself. You notice the subtle variations in texture beneath the bristles, the tiny ridges left by time, worn smooth in some places, slightly rough in others. The act of sweeping becomes a conversation with the stone, a patient dialogue that requires no words. The hall stretches endlessly around you, vast and still. Shadows cling to the corners, softening as the first hints of dawn spill through distant doorways. The light does not intrude, it creeps along the edges like a gentle exhalation. You watch the dust twist and drift with each motion, catching the faint glimmer of lantern glow before settling once again. It is a quiet ballet of particles, obedient to your broom, obedient to nothing else. Your body moves with measured certainty. Shoulders and arms, trained over countless repetitions, follow the rhythm without thought. The muscles remember what the mind does not need to recall. This repetition is not work in the conventional sense. It is meditation made manifest. You feel the weight of discipline in your bones, calm and steady, like the pulse of the palace itself. Every so often, your eyes lift to observe the hall in its entirety. The painted beams above stretch far into darkness, carved dragons frozen mid-motion, their expressions softened by shadow. The murals along the walls seem muted, not faded but quiet, holding their stories in restraint. You walk past them without seeking narrative, simply absorbing their calm presence, letting the brush of history move past your awareness like a gentle tide. A fellow sweeper passes, the faint rustle of their robes harmonizing with the whisper of bristles. You do not acknowledge them, yet the subtle synchronization brings a deeper sense of ease. There is reassurance in knowing that this small, continuous motion is shared. Though unseen, it is observed in the same way by many, invisible threads linking motion to motion, breath to breath, moment to moment. Your broom traces the curved edge of the floor, following the contours of the hall. The marble beneath is cool, solid and patient, as though it too participates in the routine. Each circle you sweep is a quiet affirmation that the palace endures not through grandeur, but through the meticulous, unending care of those who move through it with calm persistence. As your rhythm continues, the first faint warmth of morning begins to touch the far corners. Light and shadow move slowly, blending together without urgency. You continue sweeping, undisturbed, feeling the soft weight of this hour settle over you. The palace breathes around you, vast and gentle, and in this measured repetition, you find yourself entirely at ease. Watching the guards pass, you notice how their motions mirror your own quiet rhythm. They move with a soft precision, steps deliberate yet unhurried, hands resting lightly on ceremonial halberds. There is no urgency in their patrols, only the slow cadence of routine maintained for centuries. You feel a connection to them, not through words or glances, but through the shared discipline of presence. Each of you moves through the palace like a wave in a vast, silent sea, separate yet inseparable. The courtyard beyond the hall begins to glow faintly as the first hints of dawn stretch across the stone. Your gaze lingers briefly on the figures of the guards, shadows elongated and softened by early light, then returns to the floor. Dust swirls in the cool morning air, lifting gently where your broom passes, then settling as if persuaded to obey. There is a certain peace in this repetition, a quiet affirmation that movement itself carries its own weight, its own meaning, without need for acknowledgement. You sweep along the central corridor, brushing along the edges where the marble meets the wooden walls. The broom's bristles catch lightly on uneven patches, creating soft murmurs that echo and fade almost immediately. The sound is calming, like a heartbeat slowed to match the pulse of the palace. You notice how the air itself seems heavier here, dense with centuries of incense and slow, unbroken activity. It fills your lungs as you inhale gently, adding to the sensation of continuity and calm. A faint creak from a distant door marks the subtle presence of another sweeper further down the hall. You acknowledge it only with a soft adjustment of your steps, maintaining the rhythm that has governed your motion since first entering. There is no rush, no need to synchronize perfectly. The hall is patient, and so are you. Each movement flows into the next, uninterrupted, deliberate, and steady. You pause for a moment to adjust the broom, feeling the familiar smoothness of its handle beneath your palms. Its worn surface carries the touch of countless hands before yours, each one performing the same soft, unspoken ritual. The continuity is grounding, comforting, and gentle. You inhale slowly and let your gaze drift upward to the red-painted beams above, muted in the soft light. Dragons and phoenixes carved into the wood watch silently, their presence neither commanding nor passive, simply enduring. You resume sweeping, guiding the dust into subtle, disciplined patterns. Each stroke becomes meditation, a slow conversation between motion and marble, breath and bristle. The hall seems to sigh around you, folding the sound into itself, leaving only the weight of movement and the soft reflection of light. Outside, the sky begins to brighten, pale and calm, yet the hall remains steeped in quiet shadow. You move forward along the corridor, knowing the rhythm will carry you steadily, deliberately, toward the next space where your care will be required. The palace is unhurried, and so are you. The slow breath of the palace surrounds you as you continue down the corridor, each inhalation filled with the faint, dry scent of marble and lingering incense. The air seems thick with time, heavy yet gentle, pressing softly against your skin and slowing your pulse to match the calm rhythm of your sweeping. Each sweep of the broom moves in tandem with your own breath, a measured cadence that ties your body to the pulse of the hall itself. You notice the subtle warmth of the walls, absorbing the faint light that filters through the distant openings. The painted surfaces, muted in the early morning, seem to lean into the quiet, offering their presence without demand. You sweep beneath them slowly, letting the bristles brush lightly along the edges where dust has settled overnight. Every motion is deliberate, each pass a gentle persuasion to restore order without haste or strain. The marble under your feet is cool and steady, grounding each step as you move further along the corridor. The smooth surface reflects soft, pale light, carrying the faintest shimmer of dust that rises with your broom. You watch the particles twist and drift, spinning lazily before settling back onto the stone. There is no hurry, no expectation, just the quiet, continuous cycle of motion and stillness. A faint rustle echoes from a nearby room, the subtle shift of another sweeper moving within the walls. You do not need to glance up. The sound is enough to remind you of shared rhythm. The palace, though vast and seemingly empty, is alive with these soft motions, each one connecting to the next in a pattern older than any memory you hold. There is reassurance in this continuity, a gentle understanding that the work of now is inseparable from the work of centuries past. Your arms move with practiced ease, muscles remembering gestures that your mind no longer directs. The broom sweeps in long, even arcs, tracing quiet lines across the marble floor. Each stroke is soft, almost imperceptible, yet it leaves a mark, a subtle imprint of attention and care. Dust, displaced by your motion, drifts briefly in the filtered light, a reminder that even the smallest movement carries presence. The faint glow of dawn stretches across the far doorway, touching the edges of the hall with gentle gold. The warmth is slow and soft, creeping forward without urgency. You feel the marble beneath your feet respond subtly to your weight, a faint, reassuring connection to the enduring structure around you. The palace breathes, not hurriedly, but in a measured ancient rhythm, and you move with it, synchronized, calm, and entirely absorbed. Your broom rises and falls once more, returning to the familiar path. The quiet, the weight, and the rhythm hold you fully in the present. Each sweep becomes its own meditation, each breath a continuation of the hall's patient, unchanging pulse. Sweeping the empty courtyard feels like moving through a living pause. The open space stretches endlessly, yet it holds you gently, cradled in its vast stillness. Your steps are measured, each one pressing lightly against the cool marble, echoing faintly before dissolving into silence. The broom moves steadily in your hands, a slow and deliberate extension of your breath. Dust rises in thin, hesitant clouds and settles just as quietly, leaving the surface polished and calm once more. The sky above is still pale, the first hints of light threading softly across the rooftops. You notice the faint reflection of this glow on the marble, shimmering gently as you pass. There is no urgency here. The sun does not hurry, and neither do you. Every motion is deliberate, a soft affirmation of presence, a quiet repetition that binds the courtyard, the hall, and yourself together in gentle rhythm. Your arms sway naturally, guiding the broom along well-worn paths where dust has settled and waited. The fine particles seem to linger longer than they should, clinging softly to the corners and edges. You sweep them patiently, coaxing them toward the centre, where the movement of others will gather them again. Each stroke is careful, unhurried, almost ceremonial in its constancy. A faint rustle drifts from the far end of the courtyard, where another sweeper continues in mirrored rhythm. Their movements are soft, almost imperceptible, yet they reassure you that the routine is shared, uninterrupted, continuous. The connection is subtle but profound, a silent acknowledgement that these small, repeated acts sustain the space, the palace, and the quiet within you. The coolness of the marble seeps through your feet, grounding you with every step. You notice the faint scent of dew, mingled with the lingering fragrance of night blooms from hidden gardens. Each inhalation is slow, deliberate, drawing the courtyard into your body as you sweep in steady arcs. The work itself becomes meditation, a soft current of calm that rises and falls with every stroke. Above, the rooftops capture the morning light, yet the courtyard remains subdued, protected by walls that have held centuries of silence. Even the shadows seem to wait patiently, softening the contrast between light and dark. Your broom traces the final line along a particularly worn patch of stone, the sound barely more than a whisper. It is enough, and yet it does not demand notice. You pause for a fraction, letting the broom rest lightly against your shoulder. The courtyard exhales, calm and steady. You inhale the weight of the space around you, feeling the rhythm of stone, dust and motion settle into your own breath. Beyond the distant gate the world stirs slowly, but here, time itself seems to pause, embracing the gentle repetition that defines your presence. The fading stars above begin their slow retreat, letting pale morning light creep softly across the rooftops. The courtyard and halls remain largely shadowed, Yet the subtle illumination is enough to outline the vast shapes of the palace. Each roof tile, each carved beam, is gently revealed without urgency. You notice the way the light lingers on the edges of the stone, casting faint patterns that shift slowly as the sun inches higher. You move the broom in long, deliberate sweeps, tracing invisible lines along the marble. The strokes are steady, rhythmic, almost hypnotic in their repetition. Dust rises briefly with each pass, spinning lazily before settling again. You hardly notice its ascent. It moves as naturally as the air itself, guided by the slow certainty of your hand. The palace feels alive in this quiet way, not with noise or motion, but with enduring patience. A distant whisper of wind drifts through an open archway, brushing against your robes and lifting a few stray threads of dust. It is soft and gentle, carrying the faint aroma of stone warmed by the first light. You inhale slowly, letting the calmness settle into your chest. There is no hurry. Even the air moves deliberately here, neither rushed nor stagnant, simply patient. Your hands continue to guide the broom, brushing along familiar paths. The marble beneath your feet is cool and steady, and the texture shifts subtly under each stroke. Tiny ridges and worn areas tell of centuries of use, yet the hall remains unmoved, patient and unchanging. You're part of this rhythm now, a soft extension of the space itself. Beyond the courtyard walls, the city begins its own slow awakening. Birds stir gently, their wings brushing the sky with faint rustles. But inside, in the shadowed stone and polished marble, everything remains quiet, untouched by hurry. You sense that this is the palace's way, to hold the present still, to let routine itself carry weight, and to remind those within that repetition can be a kind of grace. You pause for a brief moment beneath the red-painted beams, feeling the slight warmth of the sun's first touch on the stone. The light is soft, almost imperceptible, yet it seems to deepen the calm that has been building with each sweep of the broom. Your body remembers the rhythm. Lift, sweep, pause, return. Each motion reinforces the silence, the slow breath, the gentle weight of existence within these walls. With a soft exhale, you resume sweeping. The broom arcs over the marble once more, brushing the dust aside and leaving a faintly polished trail. The light continues its slow progression, but the palace's quiet holds firm. You are part of it now, moved by the same invisible force, carrying on the rhythm that sustains these vast halls soft and unbroken. The first warmth of morning touches the far edges of the hall, filtering through high windows in delicate muted beams. They fall lightly on the polished marble, tracing faint lines of gold across the grey surface. You notice them only peripherally, your attention absorbed by the broom in your hands and the slow, measured rhythm of its motion. Each sweep remains deliberate, connecting one stroke to the next in a soft, continuous flow. The marble beneath your feet is cool, grounding you as you move. You follow the same well-worn paths, brushing along the corners and edges where dust gathers most stubbornly. The particles lift with a whisper, spinning briefly in the faint light before settling gently back down. It is a quiet dance, unhurried and unobserved, yet entirely absorbing. The motion itself becomes a soft meditation, each arc of the broom a subtle, soothing repetition. You sense the presence of other sweepers in the distant corridors, their movement mirrored in faint echoes barely perceptible. Their rhythm intertwines with your own, forming an invisible, slow wave that courses through the palace. There is reassurance in this synchronization, a quiet affirmation that these simple, repeated acts hold the space together. Words are unnecessary. The shared effort speaks more clearly than any sound could. A gentle draught passes through an open archway, lifting a thin wisp of dust that glides upward before descending again. You follow it with your eyes briefly, then return to the sweep. The air is cool but soft, scented faintly with stone and the remnants of incense. It moves languidly, perfectly aligned with the stillness that surrounds you, and you let your breathing slow in step with it. Your arms guide the broom in careful, patient arcs. The bristles skim the stone lightly, adjusting automatically to each ridge or indentation in the marble. Time feels suspended here. Seconds stretch into minutes, and minutes into quiet hours. The repetition is comforting, almost hypnotic, and you find yourself absorbed entirely in the flow of motion. Far above, the painted beams and carved dragons remain silent observers. Their muted colours shimmer faintly in the morning light, but they do not demand attention. You notice only their presence, the quiet dignity they lend to the hall, and you continue your sweeping with gentle awareness. Each stroke echoes softly in the vast space, joining the subdued chorus of all who move before you. As the hall stretches onward, the courtyard outside glows faintly with the first real light of day. The palace remains in its deliberate, unhurried state, and you follow the rhythm, sweep after sweep, step after step, entirely absorbed in the quiet, unbroken meditation of work. The hall deepens in calm as you move further along, the faint morning light stretching slowly across the stone floor. Your broom arcs steadily, each motion carrying its own soft weight, rising and falling in a rhythm that mirrors your breath. You notice the way the dust swirls gently with each sweep, spinning briefly before returning to rest. There is no urgency here, only the slow, steady motion of attention, repeated again and again. You glance at the walls, adorned with muted murals and painted beams. Their colours are soft in this early light, red softened to a warm brick, golds dulled to bronze. They do not demand focus, only presence. You allow your eyes to rest upon them for a moment before returning to the broom, the bristles sliding effortlessly along the marble. The motion is familiar, comforting, almost like a gentle chant without sound. The distant courtyard hums faintly with life, though it is quiet and measured. Other sweepers pass along similar paths, their shadows barely noticeable in the soft light. You do not seek them out, yet the subtle echo of their motion reassures you. There is a shared understanding here. The rhythm of this palace is maintained not by words, but by quiet repetition, by the persistent, unhurried flow of effort. A gentle breeze drifts through a side entrance, carrying the faint scent of stone and dew. You pause for a moment, inhaling slowly, letting the cool air fill your lungs. The motion of sweeping continues automatically, your hands following the curve of the marble as your mind settles further into the quiet. Each stroke becomes a meditation, a soft acknowledgement of continuity and endurance. The floor beneath your feet bears the weight of centuries. Small ridges and uneven patches tell of countless steps and countless brooms, yet the stone remains patient, absorbing every motion without complaint. You trace these subtle contours with care, adjusting your pressure, letting the broom follow the natural paths that history has worn into the surface. Faint light now touches the high ceilings, revealing carved dragons and phoenixes that watch silently over the hall. Their forms are softened by shadow and distance, unmoving witnesses to the slow unfolding of morning. You move beneath them without thought, continuing the gentle arc of your broom. Every motion feels connected, to the past, to the space, to every hand that has performed this same ritual before you. Your breathing matches the pace of the broom, inhaling and exhaling in a soft, consistent rhythm. Dust lifts and falls, light meets shadow, and the palace remains steady, unmoving yet alive in its patient observation. Step by step, Sweep by sweep, you continue through the hall, entirely absorbed, entirely present in the quiet meditation of this slow, deliberate labour. You move into a narrower corridor now, where the walls rise closer on either side, painted with faint murals that have softened with age. The air is cooler here, carrying the faint scent of old wood and stone. The broom glides over the marble floor with a slightly different resistance, catching on the tiniest irregularities, which you adjust for instinctively. Each stroke feels intentional, yet effortless, a conversation between your hands and the surface beneath you. The corridor stretches quietly ahead, its length marked only by the repetition of your motion and the subtle reflections of morning light along the polished marble. Shadows cling to the edges, softening the lines where floor meets wall. You follow them methodically, sweeping in long arcs, lifting dust with each pass and allowing it to settle once more, as if guided by the will of the palace itself. You hear the faint movement of another sweeper behind a partially open door. Their presence is almost imperceptible, yet you feel it in the cadence of the hall. No words are exchanged, none are needed. The rhythm of your actions connects silently, creating a gentle harmony that extends through the corridor past arches and doorways, linking each small motion in a shared, unspoken understanding. The painted beams above appear muted in the soft light, reds and golds faded to quiet tones, each dragon and phoenix carved in repose. You do not need to focus on them. Their stillness is a companion to your own. The quiet shapes seem to hold the air in place, guiding it gently, ensuring the motion of the broom is met with equal calm. Your arms sway with the same gentle, unwavering rhythm, lifting the broom, brushing, returning, pause, repeat. Each motion is deliberate, the bristles following natural grooves and worn patches in the stone, coaxing dust toward the centre where it will be gathered again. There is no rush, no expectation, only the careful continuation of what has always been done and will always be done. A soft draught moves through the corridor, brushing against your robe and carrying the scent of the courtyard beyond. You inhale, letting it settle into your chest, filling you with the quiet patience of the space. Time seems to stretch. Minutes lose their sharp edges and fold gently into the flowing motion of the broom. You reach the far end of the corridor and pause, letting your broom rest lightly against the marble. The space exudes calm, carrying with it the weightless assurance that your labour is neither wasted nor urgent. It simply exists, a slow, persistent thread woven into the palace itself. You resume, once more attuned to the rhythm of movement and silence. You step into a small enclosed chamber off the corridor. The walls close and painted in muted reds and golds that feel warmer in the morning light. The air is still here, almost suspended, carrying the faint scent of incense that has lingered from previous rituals. Your broom meets the marble with soft resistance, each stroke producing a quiet whisper as you guide dust into orderly arcs. There is a comforting predictability in the motion, a gentle continuity that fills the space with a slow, deliberate presence. The chamber is empty of anyone else, yet you sense the weight of those who have passed through before you. Each footprint, each brush of a broom has left an imperceptible imprint in the air and on the stone. You sweep with a careful attention, as though acknowledging their unseen rhythm, honouring the subtle continuity of generations who have maintained this quiet labour. The motion is meditative, connecting you to a history that is soft, patient, and unhurried. A faint draught curls through a small window, lifting a single wisp of dust. It twirls gently in the light, spinning slowly before settling again, obedient to the rhythm of your broom. You pause briefly to watch it, inhaling the cool, dry air. The scent of stone, wood, and residual incense fills your lungs, deepening your awareness of stillness and reinforcing the slow pace of your movements. Your arms guide the broom along the edges of the floor, sweeping methodically in wide arcs, tracing lines that have been traced countless times before. The bristles catch subtle variations in the marble surface, the ridges left by time, the faint unevenness worn smooth by repetition. Each adjustment is automatic, instinctive, performed without thought, a quiet conversation between your hands and the stone beneath you. Soft light begins to filter through the high window, revealing the faint texture of the walls, the delicate cracks, and the subtle curvature of the beams above. The colours are subdued, blending seamlessly into the shadowed corners. You do not linger on them. Instead, you allow your attention to remain on the rise and fall of the broom, the lift of dust, and the whisper of the stone beneath your feet. You sense the chamber's boundaries not through sight alone, but through the motion it requires. Each sweep is a careful negotiation of space, a gentle orchestration of bristles and dust that restores calm without effort. The palace, though vast and timeless, is composed of these small, deliberate acts. You continue, step by step, sweep by sweep, entirely immersed in the soft, unbroken rhythm. The faint warmth of morning reaches the far corner, brushing the marble lightly, yet it does not disturb the serenity. You follow the broom's rhythm as it arcs along the floor, feeling fully absorbed in this quiet meditation of labour, movement, and presence. You move from the small chamber into a slightly larger room, the walls lined with carved wooden panels that have softened over time. Their muted tones, faded reds, soft browns, and hints of gold, carry a quiet dignity, yet they demand no attention. Your broom sweeps the marble floor in gentle arcs, lifting dust that has settled overnight and coaxing it toward the centre. Each stroke is deliberate, unhurried, a rhythmic affirmation of presence rather than effort. The air is cool but still, carrying the faint aroma of aged wood and stone. You inhale slowly, letting the calm of the space seep into your chest. The motion of your arms follows an almost hypnotic pattern. Lift, sweep, pause, return. Each repetition reinforces the stillness of the room, the quiet continuity that the palace requires, and the subtle meditation that has become inseparable from your movements. You notice the faint, almost imperceptible creak of a wooden panel behind you. It is soft, swallowed immediately by the vastness of the room. You do not glance back. Instead, the sound becomes part of the rhythm, a small echo in the continuous cadence of motion. There is reassurance in knowing that the palace itself participates in this quiet, its sounds and shadows bending seamlessly into your practice. The marble beneath your feet carries the weight of countless footsteps and countless brooms. Its surface is worn smooth in some areas, slightly uneven in others, and the broom follows each subtle curve instinctively. You adjust your pressure gently, letting the bristles glide over the natural variations, lifting dust that has nested in the smallest crevices. Every motion is measured, deliberate, and entirely absorbing. A faint shaft of morning light cuts across the far corner of the room, illuminating a small section of the wall. The colours of the panels soften further in this gentle glow, and the edges of dust lifted by your broom shimmer momentarily before settling again. The interplay of light, shadow, and motion is slow, deliberate, and entirely unhurried, echoing the quiet continuity of the palace itself. You sweep along the edges, brushing carefully beneath the carved details of the panels, tracing the faint patterns left by time. Each pass reinforces the rhythm, connecting your presence to the centuries of those who have moved through this space before you. The work is quiet, unremarkable, yet essential. It sustains the palace in its patient, measured way. Your breathing aligns with the sweeping, slow and calm. Each inhalation and exhalation mirrors the arc of the broom, creating a soft meditation in movement. Dust lifts, glimmers, and settles. The marble responds with faint murmurs, and the room seems to breathe alongside you. You continue, absorbed in the quiet, unbroken rhythm that defines this space. You step into the adjoining hall, larger and slightly higher than the previous room. The polished marble stretches before you, reflecting faint hints of the morning light that filter through distant windows. The sweep of your broom seems slower here, almost deliberate in its heaviness, as if the space itself encourages a softer, more measured motion. Dust lifts briefly, swirls in gentle arcs, and drifts back down to settle without disturbance. The walls are lined with carved panels and murals, now muted and softened by time. Dragons and phoenixes, once vibrant, now rest in quiet repose. You do not linger on them. Their presence is simply part of the rhythm, a calm companion to your sweeping. Each pass of the broom creates faint lines in the marble, a subtle acknowledgement of your care and the continuity that fills the hall. A faint sound echoes from the distant courtyard, the soft scuff of a guard's shoes, the barely perceptible rustle of robes. You do not acknowledge it with movement or glance. Instead, it blends into the larger cadence of your work. The palace absorbs sound as it absorbs light, letting each tiny disturbance settle naturally, leaving you uninterrupted in the slow, meditative process of sweeping. The air carries the cool, dry scent of marble and the lingering traces of incense from past rituals. Each inhalation draws the calm deeper into your chest, reinforcing the gentle rhythm of motion. Your hands guide the broom in a series of long, deliberate arcs, following the faint curves of the floor and the subtle ridges formed by centuries of use. Every motion is automatic now, a meditation in continuity, repetition, and stillness. You pause briefly near a low wooden partition, letting the broom rest lightly against the marble. The soft warmth of sunlight touches the edges of the room, illuminating dust motes that drift lazily in the air. Their movement is slow and deliberate, following the gentle currents of the hall. You breathe in the quiet, feeling the gentle weight of time itself pressing softly against the stone and air. Your broom resumes its rhythm, sweeping along the edges and into the corners, coaxing away the remnants of night. Each pass is slow, careful, and unhurried, aligning with the measured calm of the palace. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you move deeper into the hall, entirely absorbed in the repetition, entirely present in the quiet meditation of labour. Even as the light grows brighter, the hall remains calm and patient. Shadows shift imperceptibly, and the marble absorbs every movement, every breath, every gentle motion. The palace endures, as do you, swept into the same soft rhythm of presence, repetition, and unwavering care. You enter the next chamber, smaller and more intimate than the vast hall before, yet equally steeped in quiet. The marble beneath your feet is cool and smooth, polished by centuries of careful use. Your broom moves in gentle arcs, tracing soft lines along the floor, lifting dust that has collected in the corners and along the edges. Each motion is deliberate yet effortless, a meditation made tangible through repetition. The air here is still, carrying a faint aroma of aged wood and lingering incense. You inhale slowly, letting the scent settle in your chest and expand into your lungs. The quiet is complete, broken only by the soft whisper of bristles against stone and the subtle creak of the wooden beams above. Each sound is absorbed into the chamber, leaving you fully immersed in the rhythm of motion. Painted panels along the walls display muted colours, reds and golds softened by time. The images are familiar yet softened, dragons and phoenixes frozen in repose, neither demanding attention nor fading entirely. They become companions to your sweeping, silent witnesses to the gentle continuity of your labour. You do not study them. Instead, their presence reinforces the calm, providing a subtle framework to the repetition that fills the room. A faint draught drifts through a high window, brushing against your robes and lifting the smallest traces of dust. The particles spin slowly in the pale light, then settle softly again, obedient to the quiet rhythm that dominates the chamber. You pause briefly, inhaling the cool, dry air, then resume, allowing your hands to follow the natural grooves and subtle imperfections in the marble floor. The motion is entirely automatic now. Your muscles remember each sweep before your mind can register it. Lift, sweep, pause, return. Each movement flows seamlessly into the next. The floor seems to respond, yielding gently to your bristles, guiding the motion with faint ridges and worn areas. The act itself becomes a quiet affirmation of presence and patience, a meditation in stillness and care. You notice the faint interplay of light and shadow along the far corner, a gentle shift that seems to breathe with the chamber itself. The motion of the broom harmonizes with this subtle change, as if acknowledging the palace's own rhythm. Each sweep is slower, softer, carrying a weightless significance, the repetition itself the reward. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you continue across the floor, absorbed in the soft cadence of labour. Time loses sharpness here. Moments blend together in the gentle meditation of motion, dust and stone. The palace endures, and so do you, moved by the same invisible, unhurried pulse that has governed this space for centuries. The chamber opens into a narrow passage. Its walls close and adorned with faded murals that stretch upward, disappearing into shadow. The marble floor beneath your feet feels cooler here, slightly uneven, carrying the subtle history of countless footsteps and brooms that have moved along the same path. Your broom glides with gentle persistence, tracing arcs that lift the smallest particles of dust and return them to order. Each stroke is deliberate, slow, and soothing, as if the motion itself is a quiet affirmation of existence. The faint scent of stone and lingering incense clings to the air, calming and grounding. You inhale softly, letting the coolness and faint warmth mingle in your chest. The corridor seems to stretch without end, yet it is defined entirely by the rhythm of your sweeping. Each motion carries you forward, step by step, in a gentle, meditative procession through space and time. Faint creaks echo from a distant doorway, almost imperceptible against the soft whisper of bristles brushing marble. You do not need to look. The sound is absorbed into the larger cadence of movement that governs the palace. Each tiny noise folds into silence almost immediately, leaving only the slow, steady motion of broom and body. The rhythm is constant, soothing, entirely unhurried. The murals along the walls, once vivid, now appear muted, softened by centuries of light and shadow. Dragons, phoenixes, and abstract patterns seem to rest in quiet repose, their shapes guiding the eye without demanding attention. You do not dwell on them. Instead, their presence adds to the calm, a quiet framework that enhances the meditative flow of your work. A soft draught drifts through a high window, lifting a few dust particles into the pale morning light. They swirl lazily, spinning gently before settling again, obedient to the rhythm of your broom. The motion continues automatically, a slow, deliberate conversation between hand, bristle, and stone. Each sweep is measured, each step intentional, forming a quiet dialogue with the space around you. You pause briefly in the centre of the passage, letting your broom rest lightly against the marble. The air seems to settle around you, heavy yet soft, carrying the faint warmth of morning that has begun to touch the outer walls. You inhale once more, and then return to the gentle, unwavering motion. Each sweep carries its own significance, not in what it achieves, but in the patient, continuous rhythm that sustains the space. Step by step, arc by arc, you continue down the corridor. The palace breathes slowly, the marble absorbs each motion, and you move in harmony with its quiet, unbroken pulse. Dust rises, drifts, settles, and is swept again. An endless, soothing cycle that connects the present with centuries past. A soft meditation in motion. You enter a wider gallery now, its ceiling higher and the space more open, yet the calm remains uninterrupted. The polished marble reflects the soft morning light filtering through distant windows, stretching long, muted shadows across the floor. Your broom arcs in gentle, deliberate sweeps, lifting dust that has settled overnight and coaxing it toward the centre, only for it to drift back softly, obedient to your rhythm. Each movement is slow, continuous, and comforting. The walls are lined with painted panels and carved beams, their reds and golds softened to warm, subdued tones. The figures within, dragons, phoenixes, and silent attendants, watch over the room without demand or expectation. You do not linger on them. Their presence is quiet, reinforcing the gentle flow of your sweeping. The gallery feels alive only in motion and stillness, in the soft repetition of ritual labour that fills the space with calm. A faint sound drifts from a distant doorway, the soft shuffle of a fellow sweeper moving along the adjoining corridor. It is barely audible, yet it blends seamlessly into the rhythm of the gallery. There is reassurance in this shared, silent cadence. Each motion is connected, each pause harmonized, forming an unspoken chorus of steady, deliberate care. Your arms guide the broom along the edges, following the gentle contours of the marble. Tiny ridges and worn areas catch the bristles briefly, prompting small adjustments that are almost imperceptible. Each stroke is automatic, a soft conversation with the floor, each motion a quiet meditation. The act itself holds meaning in its repetition, a steady affirmation of presence that does not demand attention or reward. The air carries the cool scent of marble and faint traces of incense. A gentle draught moves through the gallery, lifting a few specks of dust that spin in soft arcs before settling again. You pause for a moment to inhale, feeling the calm settle deeper into your chest, then resume. Each sweep flows naturally into the next, each arc connecting seamlessly, forming a rhythm that is entirely your own, yet inseparable from the space around you. Light continues to stretch across the hall, brushing gently against the panels and casting shadows that shift almost imperceptibly. You follow the broom's motion in harmony with these subtle changes, each stroke deliberate, slow, and calming. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you move through the gallery, absorbed in the soft meditation of repetition, motion, and quiet continuity. The palace breathes with you, slow and steady, carrying the weightless assurance of centuries. You continue, entirely present, entirely absorbed in the gentle rhythm that defines this serene, enduring space. You leave the gallery and step into a quieter, narrower hall where the polished marble is worn smoother from countless footsteps. The walls here are simpler, unadorned, yet they seem to absorb the soft glow of morning, reflecting it faintly across the floor. Your broom glides over the surface in slow, deliberate arcs, lifting the smallest particles of dust and settling them in orderly lines. Each stroke is deliberate, measured, and perfectly aligned with the rhythm of your breathing. The air is cool, carrying a subtle mixture of stone, wood, and faint incense from nearby chambers. Each inhalation draws the calm deeper into your chest, reinforcing the sense of slow, deliberate motion that fills this hall. The corridor stretches ahead, uninterrupted, defined entirely by the repetition of sweeping step by step, arc by arc, and the quiet echo of centuries past. A soft creak drifts from a distant door, barely audible against the whisper of bristles on marble. You do not need to glance. The sound blends seamlessly into the quiet cadence of the hall. There is reassurance in this faint presence, an awareness that the space is alive only through shared, unhurried motion. The palace breathes gently around you, and you follow its slow, continuous pulse. Your arms move in familiar patterns, the broom rising and falling in wide, meditative arcs. Tiny imperfections in the marble guide the bristles, creating soft variations in sound and texture that you follow instinctively. Each stroke is automatic, effortless, and calming, a meditation in both motion and stillness. The hall responds with faint echoes, subtle and unassuming, reinforcing the gentle weight of time and presence. A draught enters from a small, high window, lifting a few specks of dust that spin lazily before settling again. You pause briefly to inhale, letting the air fill your chest and mingle with the rhythm of your movement. The light touches the wall softly, highlighting the cool stone and muted tones of the marble floor. Shadows shift imperceptibly, blending with the arcs of your broom, forming a quiet dance of motion and stillness. You resume sweeping, following the natural contours of the corridor, brushing along edges and corners with care. Each sweep is soft, steady and deliberate, a continuation of the ritual that maintains the hall's calm. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you move further into the corridor, absorbed in the meditation of repeated motion, the quiet hum of the palace, and the enduring rhythm of centuries. The hall, though narrow, holds space for the weightless assurance of repetition. You continue, fully present, letting the slow, unbroken cadence carry you deeper into the quiet heart of the palace. You step into a small antechamber, its marble floor cool beneath your feet and polished smooth from long use. The walls are simple, unadorned, yet they carry the faint texture of time, subtle cracks, tiny patches of faded colour, and the gentle curve of carved wood along the edges. Your broom sweeps steadily, lifting dust that has settled overnight, each motion soft, measured, and deliberate. The rhythm of your work blends seamlessly with the quiet stillness of the space. The air here is slightly warmer, carrying a faint trace of incense and stone, mingling with the coolness of marble. You inhale slowly, letting the calm spread through your chest and down into your limbs. Every motion, each sweep and return of the broom, reinforces this slow, meditative rhythm. Time feels suspended. Minutes stretch and fold gently into one another, defined only by the arcs of your broom and the soft whisper of bristles against marble. A distant draught drifts through a narrow window, lifting tiny motes of dust that spin lazily before settling again. You pause briefly to watch, inhaling the faint scent of stone warmed by morning light. The motion of the broom resumes, seamless, unhurried, and entirely absorbed in the repetition. Each stroke feels like a quiet affirmation of presence, a gentle acknowledgement of the enduring weight of centuries around you. The chamber's walls seem to breathe softly with each sweep, absorbing sound and light alike. There are no sharp edges here, no interruptions, only the steady cadence of motion. The bristles of your broom follow the subtle variations in the marble, adjusting automatically to ridges and worn patches. Each pass is soft and intentional, leaving faint traces of your care in its wake. You notice the interplay of light and shadow along the corners, faint patterns that shift imperceptibly as the morning grows. The subtle changes guide your motion, synchronizing your sweeping with the quiet pulse of the room. The rhythm is continuous, unbroken and entirely calming. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you move deeper into the chamber, fully immersed in the meditative cadence of labour and silence. A gentle warmth begins to touch the far wall, hinting at the arrival of a sunbeam that will later fill the room. Yet now the chamber remains serene, untouched by haste. Your motions flow naturally, guided by repetition and awareness, reinforcing the slow, unhurried continuity that defines this space. Each sweep, each pause, becomes part of the chamber's quiet life, a meditation in motion that will persist long after you step away. The antechamber opens into a broader hall where the marble stretches before you in soft, muted tones, reflecting the slow progression of morning light. Your broom moves steadily, tracing gentle arcs across the floor, lifting dust that has settled in the corners and along the edges. Each motion is deliberate, unhurried, a quiet ritual repeated countless times yet entirely absorbing in the present moment. The air carries a faint mixture of stone, wood, and lingering incense. You inhale slowly, letting the scent settle in your chest as your arms guide the broom with gentle precision. The hall is quiet, vast yet intimate, and every sweep seems amplified in the soft echoes of space. Time here feels suspended, elongated by the steady repetition of your actions. Faint light filters through high windows, touching the edges of carved wooden beams and muted murals along the walls. Dragons and phoenixes, their forms softened by centuries, seem to watch in silent observation. You do not dwell on them. Their presence adds only to the rhythm, reinforcing the calm, meditative flow of your sweeping. Each pass of the broom is a quiet conversation with the marble beneath, tracing the curves, grooves, and worn areas with soft attentiveness. A distant shuffle comes from a corridor beyond, the faintest sound of another sweeper moving through the palace. It is nearly imperceptible, yet it blends perfectly into the rhythm of your own motions. There is reassurance in this, a subtle acknowledgement that the space is alive only through repeated, patient effort. No words are needed. The quiet continuity itself is the only language required. Your arms move naturally, lifting and guiding the broom along edges and corners, following the contours of the floor as if it were a living guide. Each sweep is meditative, a soft echo of countless hands before you. Dust rises and falls with gentle obedience, drifting in tiny swirls before settling once more, unhurried and calm. The hall seems to breathe alongside you, carrying the faint warmth of morning light and the soft weight of history. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you progress across the marble, fully absorbed in the meditation of motion. The repetition is grounding, gentle, and entirely unbroken, reinforcing the soft, enduring pulse of the palace itself. Even as shadows shift and light deepens, the rhythm remains steady, uninterrupted. You continue, fully present, each sweep a small act of continuity, each pause a quiet affirmation of the serene, unhurried life that persists within these walls. You move into an adjoining chamber, smaller than the hall you just left, yet equally suffused with calm. The marble floor is cooler here, worn smooth by countless footsteps and brooms sweeping across its surface. Your broom moves in slow, deliberate arcs, brushing dust toward the centre where it will settle briefly before being swept again. The rhythm is steady, soothing, and entirely absorbing, a quiet meditation made tangible through motion. The air carries the faint scent of stone, wood, and lingering incense, blending with the gentle warmth of morning light filtering through a high window. You inhale deeply, letting the calm spread into your chest and down your limbs. The chamber feels suspended in time, defined entirely by the repetition of your movements, each stroke connecting seamlessly with the next. Faint light plays along the walls, revealing subtle textures and worn areas of stone. The marble seems to respond to the broom with a soft, almost imperceptible resistance, guiding each pass with a quiet familiarity. You adjust instinctively, allowing the bristles to follow natural grooves and ridges, lifting dust and leaving the surface calm, polished, and orderly. A gentle draft drifts through the chamber, carrying dust motes that swirl lazily in the soft light before settling once more. You pause briefly, inhaling the cool, dry air, then resume sweeping, attuned to the chamber's rhythm. Each motion feels like a conversation with the space itself, an acknowledgement of centuries of silent labour performed before you. Your arms rise and fall in careful arcs, each sweep precise yet effortless, forming a meditative cadence. The faint echo of bristles against marble accompanies your breathing, soft and continuous. The chamber seems to respond, absorbing sound and motion alike, leaving only a sense of calm continuity. You sweep along the edges and into the corners, coaxing dust from spaces where it has nested overnight. The slow, repetitive motion is grounding, connecting you with the quiet weight of the palace and the patient rhythm that has endured through countless mornings. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you move deeper into the chamber, absorbed fully in the quiet meditation of labour. Even as the sun rises higher, the chamber remains calm and patient. Your motions continue seamlessly, each sweep reinforcing the steady, unbroken pulse of the space. You're entirely present, entirely absorbed, carried by the rhythm of repetition, motion, and quiet, enduring care. You step into a slightly narrower corridor, where the marble beneath your feet is cooler and smoother than in the broader chambers. The walls are unadorned here, absorbing the soft light that filters in through high windows and reflecting it faintly along the floor. Your broom moves in gentle, deliberate arcs, lifting dust from corners and edges, each stroke measured and soothing. The repetition is slow, deliberate, and entirely calming, a quiet meditation that anchors you in the present moment. The air is still, carrying the faint scent of stone and wood warmed by the morning sun. You inhale slowly, letting the subtle warmth settle into your chest, aligning with the rhythm of your arms and broom. The corridor stretches ahead, uninterrupted, defined entirely by the steady cadence of motion. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you progress through the narrow space, entirely absorbed in the quiet, deliberate pattern of your labour. A distant echo drifts from a chamber beyond, the soft shuffle of another sweeper, or the faint shift of a door. The sound is delicate, almost imperceptible, yet it blends seamlessly into the corridor's rhythm. There is reassurance in this subtle presence, a quiet acknowledgement that the palace itself is alive in its own measured way. No attention is required. The stillness and motion coexist in gentle harmony. Your broom arcs over the marble, tracing lines along worn ridges and subtle grooves. Each pass is instinctive, a careful negotiation of space that requires no thought beyond the sweep itself. Dust rises briefly, drifting in small, slow spirals, then settles obediently back to the floor. The motion is continuous, unbroken, and entirely absorbing. Faint light brushes the edges of the corridor, casting soft, elongated shadows that shift imperceptibly as you move. The interplay of light and stone reinforces the meditative quality of your work. Each sweep, each gentle pause, is part of an ongoing, quiet dialogue with the palace, a rhythm that has endured through centuries of labour, performed in silence and repetition. You follow the natural contours of the marble, guiding the broom into corners and along edges with careful precision. The corridor's boundaries are defined not by walls alone, but by the steady motion of your sweeping, the gentle whisper of bristles against stone, and the soft weight of presence that fills the air. Step by step, arc by arc, you continue, absorbed entirely in the quiet, unhurried cadence that defines the palace. Even as morning light strengthens, the corridor retains its serene, measured atmosphere. You move in harmony with the enduring pulse of this space, each motion a quiet affirmation of patience, repetition, and the soft, sustaining rhythm of centuries. You enter a slightly larger chamber, its walls lined with faintly painted panels, softened by the passage of time. The marble beneath your feet feels cool and steady, polished smooth by centuries of footsteps and brooms. Your broom moves in long, gentle arcs, brushing dust toward the centre where it settles briefly before being swept again. Each stroke is deliberate, unhurried, and meditative, drawing your attention fully into the rhythm of motion. The air carries a faint mixture of stone, wood, and lingering incense, blending with the subtle warmth of sunlight filtering through a high window. You inhale slowly, letting the calm settle into your chest. Every movement, the lift, the sweep, the return, is part of a continuous pattern, uninterrupted, grounding you in the quiet, deliberate pace of the palace. Faint shadows stretch across the floor, shifting slowly as morning progresses. You notice the way the light touches the worn edges of the marble, highlighting small imperfections and gentle ridges. The broom follows these contours instinctively, adjusting pressure slightly, guiding dust toward order. Each motion is meditative, a gentle affirmation of continuity and presence in a space that values repetition over haste. The faintest sound drifts from a corridor beyond, a soft scuff of another sweeper's movement, or the whisper of a door closing. It is absorbed immediately by the chamber, blending seamlessly into the quiet cadence of your own sweeping. There is reassurance in this, a reminder that the palace thrives on patient labour, silent care, and deliberate motion. Your arms rise and fall with steady, measured arcs, guiding the broom across edges, corners, and worn pathways in the marble. Dust lifts, swirls, and settles in gentle obedience to your rhythm. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you progress deeper into the chamber, fully absorbed in the meditation of labour, repetition, and quiet presence. Soft light continues to stretch across the room, highlighting the muted murals and carved panels along the walls. Their shapes seem almost fluid in the morning glow, reinforcing the gentle rhythm of sweeping. Each stroke is unhurried, precise, and calming, a quiet dialogue between your hands, the broom, and the marble beneath your feet. You pause briefly at the far edge of the chamber, letting your broom rest lightly against the marble. The air is still, carrying the faint warmth of sunlight and the soft weight of history. Then you resume, swept into the slow, unbroken cadence of motion, each sweep a quiet affirmation of patience, continuity, and enduring calm. You move into a narrow passage connecting the chamber to a distant courtyard. The marble beneath your feet is cool, slightly uneven, and worn smooth in places where countless hands and brooms have passed before you. Your broom glides in slow, deliberate arcs, each stroke lifting dust and returning it gently to the floor, a soft whisper that fills the corridor without disturbance. The repetition is soothing, hypnotic, a gentle meditation that draws your awareness fully into the present. The air here is cooler, carrying the faint scent of stone and wood, mixed with traces of incense lingering from distant chambers. You inhale deeply, allowing the calm to fill your chest and settle into your limbs. Every motion, the rise, sweep, pause, and return of the broom is seamless, continuous, and entirely absorbing. The corridor seems to stretch endlessly, yet it is defined by the rhythm of motion and the quiet echoes of centuries past. Faint light filters through a narrow window high above, illuminating tiny imperfections in the marble, the subtle ridges and worn patches that guide your sweeping instinctively. Dust lifts briefly, drifting lazily in the soft beams, then settles gently back to the floor. Each pass reinforces the meditative cadence of your work, step by step, sweep by sweep, connecting you to the silent rhythm of the palace. From a distant doorway comes the faint sound of another sweeper, the soft shuffle of movement that blends seamlessly into your own rhythm. You do not need to look. The sound is part of the space's pulse, a quiet affirmation that the palace thrives on patient, measured effort. The corridor absorbs and reflects this cadence, sustaining the gentle continuity of labour and presence. Your arms guide the broom along edges and corners, following the subtle contours of the marble with careful precision. Each stroke is slow, deliberate, and entirely meditative. The chamber breathes softly around you, the echoes of bristles and footsteps merging into a quiet, unbroken rhythm. Dust rises, swirls, and settles once more, obedient to the careful flow of your sweeping. The morning light gradually strengthens, brushing the walls and floor with faint warmth. You continue, step by step, arc by arc, entirely absorbed in the soft, persistent rhythm. Each sweep, each gentle pause, reinforces the unhurried, enduring pulse of the palace, connecting the present with centuries past in a meditation of motion, care, and quiet. You enter the final chamber before the courtyard, a spacious hall where the marble stretches wide and smooth beneath your feet. The morning light has grown warmer, filtering through tall windows and casting long, soft shadows along the walls. Your broom moves in gentle, deliberate arcs, brushing dust toward the centre and allowing it to settle slowly, obediently. Each motion is measured, continuous, and entirely absorbing, a quiet meditation that stretches the boundaries of both time and space. The air carries a faint mix of stone, wood, and lingering incense, warm in the morning sun yet still calming. You inhale slowly, letting the serene atmosphere settle in your chest and limbs. Each sweep, lift, arc, return, pause is seamless, forming a rhythm that is soft, unbroken, and hypnotic. The chamber itself seems to respond to your presence, absorbing sound and movement into the steady pulse of its walls and marble floor. Painted panels along the walls, muted by centuries of light and shadow, appear almost fluid in the soft morning glow. Dragons, phoenixes, and attendants stand in quiet repose, silent witnesses to the repetition and care that have defined this space for generations. You do not linger on them. Instead, their calm presence reinforces your own, providing a gentle structure to the meditation of sweeping. A faint draught moves through a high window, lifting tiny dust motes that swirl lazily in the light before settling back to the floor. You pause briefly, inhaling the cool, dry air, letting it mingle with the warmth of sunlight and the gentle scent of the chamber. Then you resume, each sweep perfectly aligned with the rhythm of the room, step by step, arc by arc, fully absorbed in the continuity of motion. Your arms rise and fall in a soft, unwavering cadence. Each pass of the broom traces the subtle curves and worn ridges of the marble, following paths shaped by countless hands before you. Dust lifts, drifts, and settles again in obedience to your rhythm, reinforcing the quiet meditation of presence and patience that fills the chamber. Step by step, sweep by sweep, you move across the floor, entirely immersed in the slow, deliberate flow of labour and silence. The morning deepens, sunlight filling the chamber with soft warmth, yet the pace of your sweeping remains calm and unhurried. You're entirely present, entirely absorbed, moving in harmony with the enduring rhythm of the palace. The ritual is complete, the motion continuous, the quiet pulse of centuries preserved through patient repetition and gentle care. You pause at the far end of the chamber, letting the broom rest lightly against the marble. The morning light warms the edges of the walls, stretching shadows softly across the floor. The air is still, carrying the faint scent of stone, wood, and lingering incense. You inhale slowly, letting the calm settle fully into your chest, allowing the rhythm of motion to linger even in stillness. The palace seems to breathe around you, slow and steady, as if acknowledging the quiet continuity of labour that has just carried through the morning. In this serene pause, you notice the weightless passage of time, the sweep of the broom, the faint arcs of dust, the soft echo of footsteps and bristles, all are small gestures, yet they anchor you in the enduring heartbeat of the space. Each motion, though repetitive and understated, has contributed to maintaining a gentle order, a soft tranquility that radiates from marble, walls, and air alike. There is no urgency here, no demand for attention, only the patient, unbroken rhythm of presence and care. You reflect on the unseen sweepers who came before, their hands guiding brooms with the same gentle arcs, their breathing aligning with the quiet pulse of the palace. Every trace of dust lifted, every surface polished, every corner attended to is a testament to the soft diligence that sustains the tranquility of this timeless space. Their work, like yours, is unremarkable to the casual observer, yet essential in its quiet endurance. As you exhale slowly, the rhythm of sweeping fades into stillness, leaving a gentle, pervasive calm. You feel the continuity of centuries beneath your feet, a patient presence that neither hurries nor waits, only persists. The palace, the labour, the light, and the quiet all converge into a single, unbroken meditation.